Hi, this is Phil Shapiro. I finished reading this outstanding book. It's a new book, Liberating Minds, The Case for College in Prison, Ellen Conliffe Langman. So for me, this book expanded my mind so much. I liken this book in some ways to Rachel Carson's Silver Spring, or Henry David Thoreau's Walden, or Last Child in the Woods. It's one of those books that after you finish reading it, you become like a different person, because your mind is just filled with interesting new ways of thinking about important topics. Whoopsie. Here we are. So here is the author. Ellen Conliffe Langman is the Levy Institute Research Professor at Bard College in New York State and Distinguished Fellow in the Bard Prison Initiative. Formerly, she served as President of the Spencer Foundation and as Dean of the Harvard Graduate School of Education. So do look her up on YouTube. There's a bunch of very interesting speeches she has given. Ellen Conliffe Langman, L-A-G-E-M-A-N-N. Please go look. There's some really interesting stuff beyond the book that she's written. This is from the back cover of the book, some testimonials that are very favorable. I'll read some of them. One of our country's preeminent educational historians offers a powerful economic and social argument for educating those in prison. That's Mike Rose. A must for anyone interested in ending mass incarceration, but Arnie Duncan says that. A poignant account of education's potential to transform lives and societies, and a timely clarion call. Tressie McMillan Cottom, who is very distinguished. I see her on Twitter and all of her books and other stuff. Important and engaging. That's William Julius Wilson. Thought-provoking, Mark Holden. And a powerful, simple solution to make prison a place of education, Darren Walker. This is from the inside flap of the book. An excellent new book that makes a compelling case. Langman is a reasoned, knowledgeable, and compassionate voice for higher education as a means to achieve the goal of prison as a place for rehabilitation. That is Vartan Gregorian, president of the Carnegie Corporation of New York. And this is also from the inside flap of the book. Anthony Cardinales was a stick-up artist in the Bronx before spending 17 years in prison. Today, he is a senior manager at a recycling plant in Westchester, New York. He attributes his ability to turn his life around to the college degree he earned in prison. Many college and prison graduates achieve similar success, and the positive ripple effects for their families and communities and for the country as a whole are dramatic. College and prison programs greatly reduce recidivism, leading to potential savings in the staggering cost of prisons. They increase post-imprisonment employment, allowing the formerly incarcerated to better support their families and to reintegrate successfully into communities. College programs also decrease violence within the prison, improving conditions for both corrections officers and the incarcerated. Well, that's something that's needed, isn't it? In Liberating Minds, Ellen Conliffe Langman eloquently tells the stories of many formerly incarcerated college students and the remarkable transformation in their lives. Now, for this book, those of you who know my book reviews know that I like to find the most interesting quotes in the books that I read, and then I scan the page and I pull out the quote to put into my book review. Well, with this book that I read, I found it difficult. Almost every single page had a quote that I wanted to include in the book review. It's so well written, so concise, and so persuasive. If I pulled out every interesting piece of the book, I'd have the entire book here in the book review. But here are some, having said that, here are some of the passages that really grabbed my attention. Okay, this is also from the flap. Whoops, that's also from the flap. Here it is. Here's a quote. In fact, some college and prison programs were launched in response to organizing by incarcerated individuals. That was the case, for example, with the college program at Bedford Hills Correctional Facility for Women in Westchester, New York. So here the college, the inmates in the prison organized the college, that's very interesting. The thrill of having learned to learn pervades students' comments. Speaking of his time in college at the program run by Cornell University, a student explained that he loved that I was being introduced to new concept that excited my mind. The more I learned, the more I realized just how little I knew. A student in the BARD program remarked at the end of his first semester that he had never imagined he could master college work, but apparently I'm smart, he said. In BARD, they see something in me that I didn't see, and they want to help us learn. A graduate of the Notre Dame Holy Cross College program at the Westville Correctional Facility in Indiana spoke in a commencement speech about the value of his studies. This is very powerful. Molding the next generation thinkers is noble in a traditional college arena, but is even more crucial here in prison. We may be here because we have had a lapse, or even a complete lack of using our minds fruitfully to achieve a goal society deems amenable. I know I can continue to use the tenets I've been taught here to better myself and my family. I can spend the last part of my life doing something that benefits society in new, important ways. This was really interesting here. Daniel Berthold, one of Bard's most distinguished teachers and a world-class philosopher, who has taught in the prison program almost since its inception, has found that his incarcerated students have a hunger for understanding and a passion and a sense of need to know that he has never encountered teaching at Bard's main campus or at any of the other colleges where he has served. He has written that, thanks to his incarcerated students, he has found wisdom because he has been able to witness in the lives of these inmates who know much better than I ever did that there is indeed a tremendous importance in studying philosophy. They understand, he insists, that engaging with philosophy can make us free, can redeem us by the way we enact it, practice it, live it. You can see almost every page in this book has something very interesting. Soon after I met Wes, who had earned his bachelor's degree just before I arrived, he applied for entrance to the New York Theological Seminary's master's program in professional studies. When he was accepted, he was transferred to Sing Sing for a year, since that was the only facility where the program was offered. As a result, I only heard through the grapevine that he was doing exceptionally well. That was not surprising to me, since Wes is a talented writer and thinks and argues very clearly. Months after earning his master, Wes was paroled and allowed to return home to his family. So interesting. Men and women who have been to college while in prison face all the same obstacles upon release, but they are much better prepared to cope with them than their non-college peers. Not only do their college credentials help them find work, but the self-assurance and hopefulness they often gain can bolster their resilience in the face of sometimes daunting challenges. Going to college also instills discipline, which helps graduates meet parole obligations, show up on time reliably once jobs are found, work vigorously and pay bills on time, and meet the general requirements of life on the outside. There is many interesting passages in this book. I highly recommend the book. If your public library doesn't have a copy of this book, you should ask them to buy it. And this book would also be a nice present. If you know somebody who works in the caring professions, this book would be a nice present to give to them. Here's another quote here. Senator Claiborne Pell, who sponsored the legislation that created Pell Grants, understood the savings that could be achieved by supporting college and prison. In 1994, while fighting to keep Pell eligibility for the incarcerated, he said on the Senate floor, "Diplomas are crime stoppers. It costs much less to educate a prisoner than it does to keep one behind bars." And here's another quote. The result is that many of those coming home remain unemployed for long periods or are only able to find part-time or unskilled low-wage work. A study conducted by the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights in 2014 found that almost 2/3 of those released from prison were unemployed or underemployed after 5 years. What is more, the economic impact of incarceration is not limited to the period of imprisonment. and the prolonged time it may take to find work. It often persists over the course of a formerly incarcerated person's entire life. Another thing I found really interesting about this book was how it describes the dignity that results to the family members when one of their family members outside of prison, when one of their family members inside of prison is enrolled in college, it becomes a badge of pride. So one of my family members is in college, happens to be in prison, but it's in college. So it becomes a badge of pride rather than a badge of shame. So that is really very, very interesting and worth thinking about. And the author also explains the kind of, she counters the argument that people in prison should not be receiving college, that there shouldn't be this reward of getting college education in prison. She counters that attitudinal stuff that prison should be more punitive than rehabilitative, just for practical reasons. In a knowledge economy, we need all minds on board. Instead of all hands on board, this is a knowledge economy. We need all minds on board. Our country is competing against other countries. We cannot afford to have any minds that are not being self-advanced. So I walked away from this book being very highly convinced that it's a good idea to have college classes in prison. If you're interested in my other book reviews, here's my website where I have other book reviews, sites.google.com/site Phil Shapiro Book Reviews. I made this video on my Linux laptop. I have a ThinkPad here. I made the screencast using some free software called Simple Screen Recorder. I try to use free software whenever I can because that makes a more inclusive world. I'm recording my audio to Olympus digital audio recorder. And I have a little, I have a Logitech webcam. That's Logitech webcam does the video part of this thing. Here's my contact information. If you wanted to contact me, you can reach me at these places. Feel free to please leave a comment if you find any of my book reviews interesting. It means a lot to me, even if you put just a short little comment. Leave comments on the videos of other people who bring value to your life. A comment is like a smile. It costs nothing, almost nothing, just to type something short, and it means a lot to the producer. You know, YouTube, well, I won't go into that. YouTube just doesn't care too much about the people producing content. So, but we can care about each other. And if you wanted to, you could also support my Patreon account. So Patreon is a website where you can give a monthly contribution as low as $2 or $1 or more. And that helps support my creative work, making these and other videos that I like to make. This is what my Patreon looks like. And the whole idea behind Patreon is interesting in that if I'm creating value and other people believe that I'm creating value, then maybe I could get 200 or 300 or 500 people each giving me $1 per month. And then when 500 people give you $1 per month, that's $500 a month, and that becomes $500 to $1,000 per month. It becomes not a small amount of money. And it's not a large amount of money either, but it's a nice little way of creating a caring circuit, right? And that's it. See you next time. This is Phil Shapiro.